G'day, KFC SuperCoaches. BBL or SuperCoach BBL is back for BBL11, and there's no one that knows the game better than our winner from BBL10. Won it by almost 300 points in the end, which is just a crazy margin for SuperCoach BBL because it's probably a bit harder to set yourself apart from the pack, especially come finals. But he was able to do that in sensational fashion, and that is Chris Baker, the coach of Crispy's Critters, as you can see. Chris, thanks for jumping on for a chat, and congratulations again on your success last year. But I guess the focus is all on BBL 11 now, and hoping you can back up that success again.
Yeah, thanks, Tim, for having me. It was a surprise. I was fairly new to BBL. It was actually only my second season, so we'll see how good fortune may favour me this season.
I remember chatting, so we chatted at the end of last season, and the biggest takeaway, because I know you're a SuperCoach AFL player as well, was that you really focused on the importance of building your team value up, which we know in any form of SuperCoach is really important. And you found yourself in that luxurious position, $2 million salary cap, but by sort of midway, you'd put almost 600,000, 700,000 onto your salary cap. How important was that to the success that you're able to have to get all those big guns into your team?
I think that was really key, to be honest. It was the main priority. I had all but one player playing from the first round, and I think when you look at the prices some of the big players get to during the season when they're in form, you need $200,000 per player. So you need 2.2 million on the field and a couple of $100,000 on the bench. You need to be aiming for 2.5 million to have a solid team.
Chris, well done here. I said to Tim before we came on air for one of the first videos of the pre-season, it's nice to kick it off in style with someone who actually knows what they're doing when it comes to SuperCoach. So well done to you. Thank again. You. But you spoke about that sort of tactic. Any other key points or tactics that you use throughout the year? Because we know the KFC SuperCoaches out there, they're looking for you. They want to know how you did it. So what else did you do with your team? What other planning sort of went into in your season?
I think some of the key things are looking at your looping player as well. I think most people sort of have a wicketkeeper batsman that's a non-playing player, nice and cheap to use. And with the coming season as well, you need to look for a club that's playing late in each round to use that looping player. I think after about 6 rounds last season, I also got a batter bowler player that I could switch position as well and use that for looping purposes. So I think that's some of the key things. I guess some of the other advice is just taking up some of the resources that are available as well. There's obviously the podcasts that you guys do, but there's a lot of blogs and forums that people can sort of get in and get a few tips and share some news. And I think you possibly also need to keep an eye on the weather. As I've learnt from the first season, I played this and partly last year as well, the weather and the scoring in SuperCoach BBL can be quite unique.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's a factor that you don't have to worry about in AFL or NRL, isn't it, Phantom?
It is interesting one. There's so many little things. It's so different the way SuperCoach BBL is played. How much time, Chris, do you think you were spending through the weeks on your SuperCoach BBL team? Did you find it as you went on? Obviously, the pointy end of the year, you probably 24/7 almost thinking about it. But going into the year, how much sort of time are you spending on your team?
I guess I'm spending a little bit of time in preparation for this season because I feel there's some expectation.
Now there is, after coming on here.
Look, I sort of got involved in a couple of forums and just had a look at a few resources before last season. Probably only started about 2 weeks before the season began last year. Once I started moving up into sort of the top 50, I was taking every opportunity to watch a game on TV and digest the results. And I think between rounds, I was probably spending from the time the SuperCoach app opened up. I was probably spending a good 3 hours solid until going to sleep, so I was ready for the next day. So yeah, it was certainly interesting to spend a fair bit of time. I don't think my wife and kids enjoyed it too much in the latter half of the season until they saw the prospective rewards.
Yeah, worth it in the end.
Yes, I think so.
So, Chris, we're chatting to you very early in pre-season for BBL 11 as well. The game not even open at this stage as we record this, we should tell our viewers. So if there's any injuries or anything else that have gone on that might affect some of the advice in the next 20 minutes or so, please take that into account. But what sort of planning, if any, have you done to this stage as well? I think you're an accountant by trade, so I'm sure you work with Excel spreadsheets and number crunching and all that sort of stuff that well and truly goes over my head. I do a lot of my super coaching just based on gut feel, and that's probably why I never find myself anywhere near the sort of heights that you achieved last season. But have you got the spreadsheet up and going yet for this season? What sort of planning have you done?
I spent a bit of time even going back into the app and looking at players' scores over the last couple of seasons. Just having a look at what the prospective prices would be, and when the fixture came out, I think much like Bryce Michell did, he did a little summary of the prospective round by round structure as well. So I think some other people have sort of beaten me to the punch, but the same sort of planning is what I've sort of looked at as well. Just trying to target the players I think that are underpriced, undervalued in particular, and also looking at those all-rounders that are always going to score well. So, yeah, I think the planning is mostly, though, around the fixture, and it's an interesting fixture as well, where a lot of the teams that have double game weeks followed by the bye as well. So it's going to make the planning of the team very intriguing as well. So yeah, that's my initial thoughts on it.
Yeah, no, it definitely will. You sound like you're more on top of it than us. I think you've given it more thought than us at this stage. And Phantom, I think like one of the important factors this summer is like we've looked at just the turnaround between rounds, or the likely turnaround anyway. And we're looking at less than a day between most rounds. I think there's one, maybe round 3, round 4 early on where we get a couple of days grace, and you've got a couple of days to make decisions. But that's one of the big things about SuperCoach BBL, isn't it? Firstly, Phantom, like you've got to make your decisions. You've got to be decisive, and you've probably got to be planning sort of midway through the round before as to what you might be doing for the next round ahead.
Yeah, and for first KFC SuperCoaches out there, maybe AFL, NRL fans thinking about playing for the first time, it sounds daunting, but if you just put that little bit of time in it and get ahead, that's where, as Chris has mentioned already, that's where he sort of did get ahead last year, and you get the extra trades per round in comparison to the other formats of KFC SuperCoach BBL. So plenty of room to move. But yes, it's all about planning, and your starting team obviously is important, getting the right rookies in like any form of KFC SuperCoach. But you really make your move and you really make your name in BBL and trading through those rounds and maximising every little point, because all the teams are going to be the same. A lot of the good players are going to be in most teams. It's all about that 1 or 2 or 3 different moves you make each week, and how you navigate, like Chris mentioned, the double game weeks that might go into the bye rounds, and how you balance your team. So it's all about balance, but then you got to maximise those weeks when you can.
Definitely. So Chris, what did you do importantly with what are you happy to tell us about what you did with the prize money and all the great KFC prizes that you picked up with last year? Hopefully you kept the wife and kids happy after they enjoyed a summer of you watching BBL and watching the scores.
Yeah, well, look, we've made a couple of modest improvements around the house, so that's one of the things, and we're investing the rest into, I guess, some family travels when the opportunity arises. The KFC vouchers enabled family and friends to have a big feast, and the cricket set, I think, is going to get a little bit of use over the summer period as well.
Very nice. And now just throwing back a little bit, you're speaking about
Yep.
taking advantage of the value. I guess question for you and Tim as well. You mentioned Bryce Mitchell as well, also already crunched the numbers ahead of the official KFC SuperCoach opening. But Aaron Finch from the Renegades could be around 60K, which, you know, for a batsman of his class, we know is a bargain, but we know how poor he was also last year. Early, are we going near him this year?
Aaron Finch, he's one of my first 5 picked. Definite in the team. His value too hard to pass up. Whether I play him on the field or whether I treat him as a rookie off the bench, I haven't yet decided. We'll see whether he fits into the salary cap either way. But I think his World Cup form, I'm hoping it will be a different form line than what his BBL10 was, and that makes him a bargain.
Oh, it's daunting, Phantom. Like the thought of going back there, I think I paid close to 170K for him last year, and then watched his price fall to 42K by the end of the year, and just endured what was a very tough run. I think there was 6 or 7 scores there in a row towards the end of the season of 20 or below, and by the end you couldn't even play him on the field because you just didn't sort of have faith that he might outscore one of your rookies. But I think Chris has hit the nail on the head. At approximate price, we're expecting him around about 60K. Like, it's going to be very, very hard to pass up the Australian T20 captain at that price. I think you get away with, he's not really a risk this year because at that price you don't really have to play him on the field. Like, he could be your last batsman that you pick unless you're going to pick a 42K player for that last batting position. So you're effectively getting a free hit. If it comes off and he makes you a heap of cash, you might get a season keeper for only 62K. Even if he only gets you through to the first double for the Melbourne Renegades, then you might have still done pretty well out of Aaron Finch. So I think he's probably going to be one of the most popular picks this year, and with good reason, considering that likely price, Phantom.
Yep, I agree. Like you said, almost a bit of a free hit given that price. Chris, you mentioned your top 5 or your first 5 picked for BBL 11. Who are the other 4?
Starting with Rashid Khan from the Strikers, assuming he gets signed very soon. Can't see any reason why he won't. But he's a consistent scorer, gets quick runs with the bat. He's economical, takes wickets. Has 2 games against the Renegades early, which I think should see hm score well, and he's a vice-captain option in any team. So he's my number 1 in the side. I've got Mitch Marsh, Australia's most informal rounder. Had an injury, obviously, last season as well, and so had an injury score in amongst his average. So I reckon he's underpriced.
So remind me, I captained him that week, Chris. The week I think he's got 1 point, and got nothing with the bat. Pulled up lame with his first ball, and my season went downhill rapidly from there.
Yeah, no, that would be harsh, but I see lots of potential for him being a long-term part of any SuperCoach team. He'll make a little bit of quid, but the fact is he'll bat top 4. He'll bowl. I'm sure he will. And that makes for a great SuperCoach BBL player. I've got Marcus Stoinis in my top 5. It's him or Maxwell. The two of them are basically the heart of the Melbourne Stars. I expect Stoinis will bowl a bit this season. If he opens the batting like he always does, you can't ask for much better than an all-rounder who opens. It's him or Maxwell, but Stoinis is cheaper based on price projections.
Yeah, I might just jump in there, Chris, if that's all right, because like Stoinis is one of the most fascinating players for me, Phantom, because he's going to be well priced this year, and certainly based on like what he did a couple of seasons ago with the bat, and he has been one of the best batsmen in the BBL now for 2 or 3 seasons, but he's only bowled 8 overs combined in the past 2 BBLs, which doesn't really put him, at least based on that, in all-rounder status, even though we know he's more than likely to be listed as a bat bowl as well. Like, it's been frustrating because we've wanted Glenn Maxwell to bowl him especially through last season when he came back. I think it was a bit of a side strain that might have kept him from bowling, but he's going to be tough to look past, isn't he, Phantom, if he's as cheap as he is, when we know he can be so destructive with the bat, and then hopefully the overs and the wickets become a bit of a bonus from there.
Yeah, it felt like last year we were just waiting all summer for him to be given the ball. It didn't really happen. Just looking at what he's been doing recently, I think, Stoinis himself, he's done more bowling in the past 3 months, I think, than he has in the past 3 years over in different camps and with the Aussie team. So I think, fingers crossed, it does translate into the BBL summer and we do see him bowl, because we talk about Aaron Finch's value, like Chris mentioned, top of the order batsman. He's probably going to open the bowling too at a discounted price, given what he did a couple of years ago. I think that's definitely a lock. Yeah.
It's a sort of, there's not many, are there, Chris, like guys that you can pick, and we call them set and forget in AFL terms, certainly, but the guy that you can pick in round one and have them in your team all through in the BBL. Like, I think a guy like Tom Curran, who we didn't see last season, is like that, because regardless of whether he has a double game week or not, he can score you 70 points each week. But Marcus Stoinis is just about as close as we get to that, isn't he? The guy that you can rely on just about every week, regardless of whether he's playing twice or not.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of all-rounders that probably fit that category. But, I think Mitch Marsh will be one. I think Stoinis is the other. You want the players that are going to give you plenty of opportunity to score, that can score high. Maxwell could as well. I said it's a sort of a Stoinis or Maxwell option. Maxwell, I saw, did a lot of bowling early last BBL season and then didn't really bowl himself too much in the second half of the season. So whether that changes again for BBL 11, I guess we wait and see.
So who rounded out your top five as well, Chris? I jumped in on you there.
Top five, Josh Philippe. You've got to have a wicketkeeper in your team, and there's only a couple of wicketkeepers that open the batting. Josh is one of them. Matthew Wade's the other. I don't think you could go wrong with either, but for me, because the Sixers have a double game week in the first round, you've got to go Philippe.
Yeah, I think he'd be a pretty popular starting player. The other one probably to throw in the mix there's Josh Inglis as well, who was the leading run scorer in the Vitality Blast over in England. I think he got 118 off about 60, 70 balls in one of the games over there as well. So he looks like he might be the man for the Australian T20 team now. I think he's put himself ahead of potentially Wade and Felipe in that mix as well.
In terms of overall squads, Tim, you mentioned Tom Curran there. Didn't see him last year. You talk about his scoring potential. I guess it all depends on what happens with England's touring party in the Ashes. If a number of big names don't choose to come over, then the likes of Curran and maybe a James Vince could also be part of that Ashes squad, which would rule them out for most of the BBL. So fingers crossed. I know Tom Curran, good luck to him, and want him to play Test cricket, but we want him for the BBL selfishly. So we will have all summer an international calendar. It's important for KFC SuperCoaches to know who is available and when picking a team, when planning ahead. So stay tuned for all of that.
Yeah, definitely. So, Chris, look, we talk about double game weeks a lot for those that are playing for the first time. A double game week, essentially what it sounds like, it's when a team plays twice, and you'll see a few of those like potentially sort of in the opening rounds of the season where more than one team plays twice, and then you've got on the back of that teams that have buys as well. So you have to try and factor all that in when you're looking at the SuperCoach BBL fixture. But how many players, in your experience, Chris, should teams be trying to have in their team that have the double game week as well? Like, especially, I think probably a bigger question when only one team has the double game week as well, because we've seen in the past few seasons where you can load up on a team that, I don't know, maybe the Renegades for last season, for example, they then have two heavy losses in their double game week, and the guys that we're all hoping score well don't score all that well. So how heavily should you be committing to these double game weeks with your trades?
Yeah, good question. I look back at last season, and where there was one club that had a double game week, I probably limited my players to 6, at most 7 players from that one club. I think the key is that if you're cheap players to play double games, the issue is that they might score 20 in both games and you only get a score of 40 from them. Ideally, what you want is sort of 3 or 4 non-D double game week players like a Stoinis, like a Darcy Short or a Dan Christian. And with them batting and bowling, they're going to get at least 50 points. So my advice with the double game weeks is where there's one club, probably no more than 6 or 7 players from that club, and focus on quality. Get the quality players, the ones that are going to score well, and get double of really good scores rather than getting double of weak scores.
And you don't want fringe players either, do you, Phantom? I think we encountered a couple of scenarios last year where it was just purely bad fortune that a player played in the first game of a double game week and then was due to fly to Perth, for example, so didn't feature in the second game because of quarantine rules and everything else that unfortunately are part of our lives at the moment. But if you're picking these guys and you want to know that the 6 or 7 that you're going to pick for the double game week are going to play both games, you don't want to get left in the lurch with, I don't know, a guy that is on the fringes of selection, doesn't do well in a loss in the first game, and then finds themselves carrying the drinks for game 2 of the double game week.
Yeah, definitely one to watch, and that's what you've got to be on top of. Back to the balance about how many players, I think I do agree with Chris's assessment there, and I think your non-double game week players, like you mentioned, got to be your big guns, because we don't want too many fringe players with double game week, but if they know they're going to play the 2 games, they still get 2 chances. We know how the game of cricket works. So all you need is just you get a real good ball first up and you could be in the form of your life, and then you score 0 and you don't get another chance in a single game. So, the balance of picking a couple of fringe guys just because they're going to get 2 rounds sometimes does work out for you. You might get 30 or 40 instead of 0. But again, that's if you don't have the big guns like you mentioned, because we do back them in a single round. But it's all about the balance, as Chris mentioned.
Yeah, just one more point, if I can, on that as well. The challenge with the draw, with a lot of the teams having buys afterwards and having fringe players that are cheaper, will be that if you need to trade them out, you limit your options on who to trade them to for the following week as well.
Very good point.
Yeah, definitely. So, Chris, you said earlier all-rounders are a big key, and Phantom just touched on it, the exact reason why. If you've got a gun with the bat that might go out early, at least they can come back with the ball, or in a case of someone like Glenn Maxwell, maybe in the field and contribute an extra 10 or 20 points to your score. But what type of players should coaches in SuperCoach BBL generally be targeting? Like who do you normally go after when you're making your trades?
Yeah, the all-rounders, the batting and bowling all-rounders are the key. Last year, my target was to try and get the best 8 into my side, 4 in the batting area and 4 in the bowling area, and then get the best specialist batsmen and bowlers after that. So that's definitely the number 1 to target. I think looking at wicket keepers can be interesting as well. I had an interest in Billings from midway in the season because of the number of stumpings he was getting from Tanveer Sangha as well. And so looking at keepers who have sort of spin bowlers in particular that sort of drag the batsman out of their crease, you get 15 points for a stumping. It's better than 10 points for a catch. And so just some of those little things sort of rattle around in your brain occasionally. But yeah, some of your lower order batsmen are the ones to avoid as well. As good as Tim David has been around the world, he didn't bowl in the BBL last year, or not much to my recollection, and he was batting 5th and 6th. As good a lower order batsman as he is, I just don't think, based on the scoring system, that he's SuperCoach material, and neither do I think any lower order batsman would work that way.
Yeah, I think you've nailed it. So Chris, especially for our newbies out there, you're the number 1 SuperCoach BBL player in the land as it stands, and will be until, well, hopefully you will be come the end of BBL 11, but certainly you will be until sort of late January at this stage anyway. What advice would you give to people playing for the first time, or people who have got desires on finishing number one like you did last year?
Take every opportunity to learn. I learned from my first season before playing last year. So listen to the experts, get involved in some forums, follow some podcasts, try and expand your knowledge, and then just try. Give it a go and see what happens. You might surprise yourself, whether it's the first year or the second year. Success can happen.
Well, the 20th year for me, Phantom. No, it hasn't been going that long. It feels like it, but we'll get there eventually.
We'll get there.
Hopefully.
Start taking Chris's advice here. Make some very, very, very good points, and very specific points, and specific to the BBL scoring system. As we all sort of get seduced by some players and some players' form, especially around the world. But it's different over here in Australian conditions, and especially different in KFC SuperCoach scoring. So some very good points there, Chris.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Chris, thanks for jumping on. If you're viewing this on our SuperCoach YouTube or on any of our masthead websites, or even on our social media as well, thanks for playing SuperCoach BBL this summer. We look forward to seeing your teams, and you'll have the opportunity to take on Chris's team as the reigning champ as well. And I know, Chris, I think we've got you lined up for a team reveal a bit closer to the season, and I'm sure you'll be giving plenty of advice to those that have signed up for KFC SuperCoach again this summer. So thanks for having a chat to us today, and all the best for Crispy's Critters. Hope you can back up your success from last season.
Thanks, Tim. You're welcome.